What's going on, you guys? Paul here with Paul's Performance, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be working on the old TDI Toyota here. It's been a while since you guys have seen it. It's also been a while since pretty much I've seen it as well. I haven't been driving it for probably the last 2 or 3 months because it needs some work and I just haven't had time to really mess with it. Not only does it need timing belt because it's already due, I think it's got about almost 100,000 on this one, so it's really kind of overdue for that. I have a coolant leak on it coming from one of the caps where I capped off on the side of the engine block, which just come from, like I said, I'm not really sure. The cap I got off of Amazon must not be that high quality. So I do have a higher quality one on my shelf to go back on it. Then we had another problem that really put it off for me using it at all, and that is that I've lost brakes. So today, what we're gonna be doing is kind of going over, seeing what all I need to do and trying to figure out what's going on with the brakes because I've lost all the brake fluid. It did get a little low and I thought, well, it's probably just because my pads are getting worn. Let me just throw some in it, and I threw some more in it, and then it emptied it out, and I put some more in it to move it across the yard, moved it across the yard, and it is now pretty much emptied that out again. I don't see anything leaking out onto the ground, so we got to figure out where it's going. So that's the main concern for today. I'm also just gonna kind of take a gander at the rest of the brakes and stuff like that to see if it's anything else that I may need, because I haven't done any work to this as far as brakes goes. So we're gonna check that out too while we have it up on the lift. Let's get under the hood and start there. All right, guys, I know you've been wondering, where's my Paul's Performance merch at? Well, wonder no further, because it's right here. Or it might be right here. It's definitely down there. If you guys want to go check that out, we have hoodies, shirts, hats, and we're probably gonna have some stickers here soon. Pick any of that stuff up. It'd be really cool to support the channel so we can make some more videos for you guys. If not, if you don't want to be cool, that's also fine too, to not be cool. You get what I'm saying. So please go check that out, guys. You guys can see I filled this up when I moved it across the property here, and it is almost empty again. The level's right there at the bottom. It's also caused the park brake light to come back on. I don't know if those of you guys who know, but on the Toyotas, whenever your brake fluid gets low, this sensor right here will throw the park brake light and it'll just stay on non-stop. So if your park brake light is on non-stop and you're wondering what's going on, you may want to check your fluid if you don't already know that. First thing, I'm just going to take a gander around and see if there's any leakages under here that I can see, or signs of where brake fluid's going, because it's going somewhere. You just got to figure out where. And I don't see anything here. One possibility that it could be going into is it could be leaking through the master cylinder and into your brake booster here. We're not gonna pull the master cylinder off yet. We're gonna wait until we kind of check the wheels first, because I got a feeling that it's probably gonna be one of the wheels, probably the rear. It's what I usually see on the Toyotas. It'll start leaking first without kind of letting you know. So we're gonna check that first while we have the wheels off. But if we can't find it, then we may come back and check here. You know, it's possible that you could get brake fluid in here and it could start leaking out into the floorboard or something like that. I don't have any leakages into the interior or anything, but it's still possible that it could be leaking by into this brake booster here, but we'll check that later. So let's go underneath the truck and inspect lines, inspect at each wheel, and see if we can see anything obvious. And if not, then we'll move on to the next step. We're gonna start here at the front. The front on these early model Toyotas are gonna have your standard disc brakes with calipers. Most new vehicles have disc brakes all the way around. In the 80s, it was still fresh, so a lot of vehicles only got them on like the front, and then the rear was still drum, which is how this one is in particular. Disc brakes are a little bit easier to be able to see if you have a leak though, comparative to disc, so we're gonna start here. Usually if you have a leaking caliper through one of the pistons, or piston if you only have one, you'll be able to see it leaking out through the caliper, and it'll also throw brake fluid on the inner wheel and onto the inner tire and make it quite easy to see. I don't have any signs of any sort of fluid leakage. My pads are still in decent shape on both sides of the front. No signs here. So we're gonna rule this out. I haven't seen any leakages onto the ground or the concrete for brake fluid to make it super obvious. So I'm gonna rule out brake lines as well. This truck's very clean, has very little rust. So the brake lines are in very good shape. And if it was a brake line, I would most likely see it on the ground, and I do not. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna move to the back, which is drum brakes still on this. I haven't updated it to disc brakes, and the drums can be a little bit trickier. So we're gonna have to take the wheels off to inspect those. Let me get these wheels off and then I'll show you guys what we're looking for on the rear. We got both rear wheels removed. removed to show our drum brakes here. A lot of times with drum brakes, when your cylinder leaks, it won't necessarily actually let the fluid leak out of the bottom into the wheel. If it's really bad, sometimes you might see it. Same way with your rear axle seals on, you know, certain vehicles that can allow that. They'll leak out and it'll get into the drum, but it won't necessarily show it on the outside. It'll just kind of spread it out on the inside until it gets really bad. The best way to be able to tell if one of these are leaking is just to remove your drum so that you can visually see it. Unless it's really bad, you likely won't get it to drip out of the bottom. So we're gonna get these removed. If you're lucky, your drum might slide off. If you haven't pulled it off in the last day, that's probably not gonna happen. So you're gonna have to get this to come off. You can tap on it and try to break it free and get it to slide off of there. You're gonna have 2 threaded holes on each side that you can stick the correct size bolts in. Once you spin them up in there, it'll actually bring the drum out. So I have 2 bolts just laying around. Not exactly sure of the thread of these right off the top of my head. I do know that these are the mounting bolts for a 6.0 Power Stroke turbo. So if you want to look that up right quick, you can figure out the threads because it works great. So we got both of them started in here, and I'm gonna just go back and forth and work it off. And there we go. So we got her off the hub, pulled off, and so now I'm gonna try to wiggle it, and there we go. So we have our drum off, and as you can see, that's the easiest way to do it. And now we're gonna inspect all the stuff in here, and our cylinder shows no signs of leakage throughout. There's no fluid, everything's nice and dry. Our pads actually look fairly good, like someone's replaced them before. Definitely wasn't me, but the guy who had it before me had done a lot of work to it, so I'm assuming he probably replaced them. So this side looks good. So we're gonna go over to the other side, pull that one off, and see what happens. All right. This side off. We're gonna do the same thing. Gonna inspect for brake fluid. This one looks about the same as the other side. Shoes look fine. There's no signs of brake fluid leakage anywhere on the inside of here. Everything looks nice and dry. Everything looks good. So a lot of times this is where you'll see your problem is leaking from the cylinder, and it will hold the fluid inside this housing without dripping out. It'll take quite a bit of time before it actually drips out, quite a lot of fluid. Before it'll do that a lot of times, and I mean, I've even seen them with, you know, leak a bunch of fluid into here and still not allow it to show any signs in the wheel. So this one doesn't have it on neither rear wheel. Now that we've done this check, I guess we'll move back up to the master cylinder and pull that off and see if that is possibly the problem. That's gonna be our next step. Let's get these back on and then we'll go back up top. So we checked all 4 wheels for signs of leakage. We didn't find any. We got the drums taken off. We didn't see any signs there. Now we're moving up to the master cylinder, which, like I said, I mentioned before about it leaking on the inside, and just about our final destination. I got a feeling that this is gonna be it once we take it off. Kind of hoping this would be it because I've wanted to upgrade this master cylinder. On these older Toyotas, this master cylinder here is like a 3/4 piston as far as for the internals, and you can actually get the later model like Tacoma master cylinders from like the 90s and throughout, I think goes up till 2000 something or whatever, and it actually has like a 1-inch size piston in here, and it'll give you a little bit more braking power, and it is a direct swap on here. The only thing you may have to change would be the connector here, which is not that big a deal, and also there's a hard line that you may have to swap out, just depends. And LC Engineering sells the entire setup with the hard line and everything if you need that to do it, or you could just go buy a little bit earlier model master cylinder, and if you need the line you could, you know, buy the line from them. But yeah, it's the exact same as the 90s one. It's just a little bit more power, and we've already done that on my dad's 4Runner, and I've wanted to do it on this, but like I said, obviously wait until it breaks. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna unbolt this from the booster here, which is 4 12mm nuts. So we're gonna get this unbolted, and I'm just gonna pull it back, and we're gonna see if we have signs of brake fluid coming out of the back side of this master cylinder. So I'm gonna get this unbolted, and then we'll see what happens. With this mirror right here, I'm able to pull the master cylinder out with leaving all the lines connected enough to where I can slide my mirror and inspect the back side just to see if there's any Ghost didn't like that. Anyways, just to inspect the back side, just to see if I show any signs of brake fluid exiting the back side of the cylinder, and also to look down into the booster hole just to see if there's any brake fluid in there. I do not see any obvious signs, not anything that I would be looking for, which would be a lot of brake fluid considering that this is emptied out. I know at least twice now I've filled it up just to move it around the property. So we've had a decent amount of fluid leave and I just still haven't had any signs of it. Now what I'm gonna do is we're gonna fill this back up. I'm gonna bolt it back up to the booster and I'm gonna go pump the brakes multiple times, and that way it'll pressurize and kind of have fluid filled back up, and maybe it will show us where this leak is going. If we don't see it on the exterior anywhere, then we'll come back and pull this back off and re-inspect. We've checked all of the spots in which we could lose fluid from, and so far we haven't found any, but like I said, the truck has been sitting outside my shop for quite a bit of time without being used, so the fluid could have, you know, kind of flowed off and now hidden itself. So we're gonna try to make an active leak to see where the leak is coming from. All right guys, so we built pressure up in the system after filling it back up, and I come back around to grab a tool and I noticed a puddle on the ground. If you look right through there, you'll see there's a small puddle on the ground that was not there before. And I'm kind of shook about it because I haven't been seeing a puddle underneath this truck since I've lost this fluid. So this is very weird that there's a puddle here now, but I'm fine with it. That means we may have found the leak. So we're gonna jack it up and see what's going on. I'm pretty certain that it's gonna be coming from the proportioning valve because that's what's in that area. And we've already checked the wheels, and if the wheels cylinders were leaking, it would definitely show because all of that dust and stuff would create like a gunk in there that wouldn't really just go away from sitting. So let's lift it up and see what's going on. It's definitely got me a little perplexed on, you know, how, you know, I've lost 2 full things of fluid in the master cylinder and it hasn't showed any signs of leakage in here because it didn't leak on my concrete at my house. And this boot right here was dry. So like I said, my only thoughts is that something was wrong with this valve to where it wasn't operational, and it had no fluid into the rear system. And I guess maybe it started to allow that fluid to come by and it slowly filled up the rear end, and that's where the fluid has been going, because other than that, there is zero signs of fluid going anywhere else, you know, on the truck. No lines leaking, no leaking at the wheels, and even the master cylinder looks fine with no signs of leakage there either. This is the first time we've seen a leak, so that's great. We found this leak. We'll go ahead and replace this cylinder. I'm probably also gonna go ahead and do the updated master cylinder. I've wanted to do that anyways, and being I'm gonna have to bleed the brakes and stuff, why not just go ahead and throw it on there and give me a little bit more braking power as well. I wanna do a disc brake conversion for this truck on the rear now that I can actually go fast a little bit, but it's kind of expensive, so I don't know if I'll do that this time. If those of you guys out there who have Toyotas with disc brake conversion on the rear, if you want to leave a comment, let me know how they're doing, if they're worth buying, because like I said, I know LC Engineering has a kit and it's pretty pricey though, a little bit more than what I'd want to spend on that. But I would like to do it, but I'm just kind of uncertain at this point. So leave a comment, let me know what you guys think I should do for that. But yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get this replaced, and I'm gonna get the new updated master cylinder. If you want me to make a video on that, leave a comment and I can make a video on doing that upgrade as well. I know that's pretty popular for a lot of Toyotas. It's pretty cool and pretty easy little swap to do. Yeah, I guess we found our leak. Now we just got to order one of these. These are, from what I remember, they're kind of expensive. They're not really a huge failure point. I think I've only seen one other Toyota where this is leaked out. But like I said, the thing is well over 30 years old, so I mean, it's about time for it to have some leaks. Alrighty guys, so it looks like we have found the problem with the TDI Toyota, or at least I hope so. Like I said, not many places brake fluid can go on these things, so to be honest, once we got through the wheels, I was pretty much guaranteed it was gonna be the master cylinder. And honestly, I'm still surprised up until this point that it's now leaking from the proportioning valve, being I didn't have any signs on the concrete when it was parked at the house, and it also lost fluid. So I am a little bit perplexed. And as you can see, those of you guys who don't work on vehicles, sometimes even as mechanics can come across things that just honestly do confuse us on how it could be possible, just like this. But like I said, we've got our issues found, and like I said, I know for a fact if I replace the master cylinder and that, I should have this issue fixed because everything else on it has zero issues, and now I can get it back to driving it. So I'm gonna get that stuff ordered. Let me know if you guys want me to make a video on that repair, or possibly updating the master cylinder. I appreciate you guys watching. As always, please like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.